the story that you share in the book, where you talk about your husband, Bill, of 46 years, writes you a letter letting you know that he wanted a divorce. How on earth do you move on in life and actually let go of the rage?
I thought everything was fine. I was happy with what I was doing, what we were doing. We'd started so many different things and worked so hard to create the world of holistic medicine and all of that. And all of a sudden, I get this letter saying that he needed to have a divorce. I just couldn't believe it. I thought God didn't understand anything that was going on in this dimension, and I was just there by myself, trying to find which way to go. And I was driving down to my house, which was now empty, and I was there by myself in Casa Grande from Phoenix. And I was screaming and yelling at God. I mean, or whoever was around. I just, it didn't matter who was around because I was just making a loud noise. And all of a sudden, I pulled over to the side of the road and I stopped the car and I just took some deep breaths and sat there for a while. And then I said, okay, this is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Of course, my name is Gladys. So I then went back to my house and changed my license plate to Be Glad, not just to remind me, but to remind other people too that life was really good and to be glad. And that started me looking for what I really needed to find, which was where I was going to go from there. And it turned out just fine, but it was a pivotal moment in time when I really, really had to make a noise. I had to weep.
Yeah, Gladys, that story shook me so much because, for context, he sent you a letter, but he also sent that exact same letter to all 6 of your children and the people, I believe, were on the board of directors of your company. And you had no idea that he wanted a divorce. And when I think of 46 years, I kind of think in those moments, you're like, okay, this is going to be for the rest of my life. But to experience that for so many people would crush them to their core and they'd never be able to get back up. And you even said that, although my divorce felt like the end of my life, I am here to tell you 34 wonderful years later, it wasn't. And when I take that one story, that you screaming in the car, that, to your point, is such an incredible pivotal moment that ended up allowing you to still live. And so I'd love to go a little deeper on this story, because you also said for you to be able to get over it, you used to live in the notion of, what's it like for someone else? Live in their shoes. And so you put on his slippers for an entire day and walked around the house to imagine what it was like for him. First of all, please explain to me how you can have such beautiful grace to try and see it from his perspective. And then secondly, what did you learn by walking in his slippers?
That they didn't fit my feet. So walking in his slippers kind of made me realize that we had walked this same path all these years, and we had done the things that we had done, and they were amazing. And at that point, then, I began to recall what we had done, and I started to focus on what had been accomplished, what we had, and not what I had lost. Because as long as I was feeling the pain of the loss, I absolutely couldn't move, except just shuffle around in these old slippers. But when I began to think about the amazing life that we had had and the experiences we had had in the field of medicine and the people that we had worked with, amazing people all around the world, and the trips that we had climbed the pyramid together and been to Cambodia together and all these things. There was just too much good stuff for me to keep telling myself that it was all bad. I mean, I just had to start being glad that I had all this time. It wasn't a misused time. It was a well-used time that I could reclaim what we had done. And it worked.
That's just amazing. In those moments, how did the pain though not overtake the joy? Because in your book, you really do talk about the beauty of a choice. And so in that moment, was it that you literally just chose joy over the pain?
I began looking for joy. I stopped looking for pain. I began looking for joy. And it was a difference. I mean, I was still healthy. I was strong. I had patience. I had work to do. And I could focus on that, not what I was losing.
Wow, that's so beautiful. That is honestly one of, it's these moments, Gladys, that I think can either break us or really point us in a direction that allows us to be who we truly are. And your work is just incredible. The amount of people that you have helped in your 102 years is just insane. And so thinking about what life would have been like if you hadn't thought like that, what life would have been like if you hadn't acted like that, and you wouldn't have then gone on to help so many people if you got stuck in that moment of heartbreak, which so many of us do. And as I was hearing your story and reading your story, there's also one other moment where he ended up marrying somebody else. And I believe that you said somebody who was more submissive. How do you process that and not live with any regret of how you showed up in that marriage?
Here's what happened. I started thinking about who I was. I'd always been thinking about that, but then I identified within myself Dr. Gladys and Gladys. And now Dr. Gladys is the one that kind of keeps an eye on where we're supposed to be going. And Gladys does the work that has to be done on this level. And every so often, Dr. Gladys is doing something that she is really likes to be doing in something. And Dr. Gladys will come either with a dream or something is said or something like that. Be glad happens. And I shake my head and say, oh, all right. I hear you. And then try to redirect, because I really had to find the reality that was my voice. When I said it, it was saying what I wanted to say. And so I didn't need anybody else to validate it. And that was a big aha, because it was coming from deep inside me.
Had you, in the past, looked for validation in external sources?
Oh, absolutely. I see, when I started school and became the class dummy for 2 years, I really, really thought that I couldn't read or write. I mean, I was dyslexic and that was it. And so I was the class dummy. But that was a deep scar in my psyche. So that for years, up until I was 93, I really, I would write something and I'd ask Bill to look over it, or I'd ask somebody else to look over it. or I would say something from the pulpit and I would refer it to some. In other words, I was saying things and then constantly, actually, and I didn't know I was doing this, I was saying things and then denying them by referring to somebody else having been said. In other words, I was not giving it my voice.
Yeah.
And so when I was 93, I had a dream. And all through my life, I've listened to my dreams. So this wasn't a new thing. But I woke up and it was a Sunday morning, and I knew it was a Sunday morning. But I was singing and laughing as I woke up, and the dream was still kind of going on. And I saw myself as 9-year-old Gladys in the jungles of North India, coming out of our tent and just pulling the tent flap back to make sure my younger brother wasn't out there, because I knew what I was wanting to do, and he would tattle on me if I did it, and I'd be in trouble. Well, he wasn't there, so I could do it. So I ran as fast as I could up the tree, mango tree, clear up to the top. And I'm sitting up there and I'm singing. I'm singing any old song that I wanted to sing, Caterpillar song or anything, because in our life, we were not allowed to sing anything but hymns or bhajans on Sunday mornings. And I thought that was a stupid rule. And I wasn't, I wanted to do what I wanted to do. So I was singing away. And all of a sudden I look over my shoulder and Jesus is up in the tree with me. And he's laughing. He's really laughing. And I say to him, Jesus loves the little children, right? And he laughs and he says, yes. So I go back to my singing. And then I get to thinking, did he really say that, And I look back at him and I say, I'm still a little children, right? And he laughs harder and he says, yes. So I go back to my singing, and that's when I woke up. And when I woke up, I realized that if Jesus can say it, my voice is okay, I'm all right, boy. I'm really okay. And I began to claim my voice, and I stopped doing the stuff that I'd been doing prior to this, which was devaluing. And in the process of devaluing my voice, I was devaluing who I was, because that really, my voice was important. And reclaiming that was huge.
Oh my God, I love that story so much, Gladys. And especially, it's kind of crazy to think that you learned that at, 93 years old, because so many of us, well, hopefully, I really very much plan to live into my hundreds. But a lot of people don't actually get to that age. And so the fact that you were able to still have an aha moment and realize that validation and the importance of your own voice is so incredible and powerful. How were you able to then, like, if someone was listening right now and they don't feel like they're valid or they don't feel like they have a voice, how would they start to actually believe it based on your story and your experience? They don't have to wait, hopefully, until 93 to experience it.
Well, number one, do pay attention to your dreams. Number two, look back on what you have done, what you have said. If you're, say, 56, and for 56 years, you've been affirming certain things, or like looking at life in a certain way, look at it again, take another look at it, and see if you really feel gratitude about what it is that you're doing. It's like my oldest daughter, who died of breast cancer when she was 58. She and I had done a lecture together, and somebody came up afterwards and was asking me for what my secret was for life. And I was trying to come up with something cute or smart or something. And all of a sudden I get the elbow from my daughter. She says, "Oh, Mom, you do so know. You dwell in gratitude." And I said, "Oh, yeah, sure." And I reclaimed that at that point. And it has been a real blessing. I think if we could just begin to look at our lives and see the things that are there that are so awesome, it allows us to reconnect with life and be part of some living process, because life has to move, and it's all based on love. I mean, the reality of love is that love is a great healer. It's a great healer for everything. I had a good friend who as he got older, he moved into dementia and was having a hard time, and we had him in a lovely home and taking care of him that way. And so this one day I brought him a little plant and I put it in his window, and I said, "James, now this little plant, you need to take care of it. You need to take care of it because it needs water, and you need to take care of it." So I didn't know how much he understood and how much he didn't. But when I came back a week or two later, he greeted me and he said, look at this box. There's magic here." He said, "This is magic." And he went up to the air conditioning box on his wall, and he says, "If I push this button, it gets hot in this room, and my plant doesn't like it. But if I push this button, it gets cool in this room, and my plant likes it." All of a sudden, he had something to live for. And he lived about 5 more years, but it was a time where I could really do something that allowed him to feel the connection with that plant. And, we're given opportunities like that if we're looking for them. Because, we have people like James in our lives who have something really that has gotten them stuck, or there is actually a process that has diminished their cognition, but they're still alive. And if they can find something, if we can help them find something that allows them to still function, it helps. It helps us. It helps them.
That's such a beautiful story. I love that so much. And I actually would love to then go to your other secret, which is secret number 3. Love is the most powerful medicine. Now, Dr. Gladys, when I grabbed your book, I didn't know what to expect, but I was like, I'm very open. Anybody who has lived an incredibly wise life like yourself, I am going to listen. But I definitely expected your book to be about nutrition and sleep and getting air. And the fact that this was such a strong one, that love is the most powerful medicine, really hit me very hard. And you talk in the book about the difference between love and fear, and that fear is the blocker to love. So can you talk to me a little about that, and how many of us move towards fear, but instead, how do we move towards love, especially if you've been burned in the past by love, especially if you've been betrayed in the past by love? How do you make sure that you keep moving towards it and don't move away from it?
Well, you can find the light in the darkness if you're looking for it. But if you're not looking for it, you will never see it. I kind of see my life, I have a flashlight on as I'm walking down my path, okay? And it's dark and I can't see any farther than where my flashlight goes. So I take one step at a time and I can continue to walk down that path. But as I'm walking down that path, if I see a little glimmer of light over to the side and then shine my flashlight onto that little glimmer, it'll light up the whole light for that person. It's that kind of a way of walking down a dark path, because you're not just looking for what step you can take forward, but you're looking for the rest of the path too. And there's people and things and so on out there that you might see if you were looking for them. And when you do see them, and they are maybe just a little flicker, and you put your light on it, it may light up the whole world for that person.
What up, homie? I got something free and new to share with you right now.
How often are you visited by that negative voice in your head telling you that you're not smart enough, that you're not good enough, experienced enough, not fill in the blank? One of the most powerful things you can learn to do in life is to turn that negative voice into your bestie. And I want to teach you how to do that and so much more in my 4 Steps to Becoming Confident workshop. And guys, the most amazing thing is you can actually register for completely free for this workshop. So click the link on your screen and I'll see you on the inside. That's so beautiful and powerful, but how do you, when you have been stung or if you've had the heartbreak, sometimes the light, they say, look for the light at the end of the tunnel. Some people are so fearful that the light at the end of the tunnel is actually an oncoming train. And I heard that analogy once and I was like, wow, that's really interesting on how 2 different people can see light in different ways. But in your book, you talk so beautifully about making sure that you always let the love in, right? So the love being the light, that you're always letting that in. If you're fearful that the light is an oncoming train, how do you change your perspective so that you actually keep moving towards it and you're allowing the love in? Because I don't know about you, Gladys, but I've met a lot of people who just have stopped looking. They've just stopped looking for love. They've stopped trying because they've been hurt, because they've been scarred by maybe the oncoming train. They just stop. And if I take your words as wisdom very seriously, Dr. Gladys. And so when I take it very seriously and I understand the importance of love, how can we open someone's heart to that may be listening right now to let that love back in?
Because if you focus on the fear and the pain, you're stuck. You can't move forward. It's like if you have a cut on your arm and you keep picking at the scab, it's never going to heal. But if you treat it and let it go and don't go on about your life, and sometime later you come back and you look at your arm and you see a scar and you say, oh, hello, I know who you are. You remember the scar, but you don't remember the pain, because that's not what your life has been all about. It's again a choice. It's what you choose. I finally, this divorce thing was so painful for me, but I finally realized that I had a choice for whether I was going to dwell on what we had lost or what we had done when we were working together, when we created the American Holistic Medical Association, the Academy for Parapsychology and Medicine, and all the stuff we had done together. And I thought, wow, this is great. We really did good stuff. So I finally decided that I don't regret 1 minute that I spent with Bill McGarry. And then he took a vacation. That's his business. It's not mine anymore. I don't need to fuss with that. He could do what he did. He died about 10 years ago now. And it's a matter of reclaiming the essence of life. I mean, the very joy that is part of waking up in the morning and taking a deep breath and say, huh, another new day. You know, and it can happen. Just try it. You know, if you feel like you're stuck and everything is so bad, you could wake up in the morning and say, oh, you mumble. Or you could wake up and look for the light or something, what's happening, and take a deep breath and see if there isn't something. There has to be something in your environment that's alive and would be. I've got this stupid woodpecker that wakes me up in the mornings, you know, and I've got a conversation going with him because he pecks on my roof and I have to say, you go away, and he pecks on my roof again and we have a conversation. But it's that kind of things, they happen, you know.
Yeah, I love that so much. I also want to go to your next or your secret number 4, which is you are never truly alone. And it really hit me where you say loneliness is as bad as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And I have another quote of yours that just was so impactful on me. You said, marriage in general is associated with decreased risk of vascular disease. Troubled marriages are associated with increased risk. The quality of our relationships at age 50 is the greatest predictor of our health and well-being at age 80. And so when I think about loneliness, and even loneliness within a marriage, because if you have a bad marriage, to your point, is that it can actually increase your likelihood of cardiovascular disease. Talk to me about how we don't allow ourselves to stay alone, to stay lonely, especially in today's society where I think so many people are retreating.
Well, when you understand that there are other people that are alone, then this, for me, this visual of having a flashlight and being able to see a glimmer of light around you is, for me, is a good visual, you know, because it doesn't expect big things. They can happen. You know, you can hear a song and all of a sudden, oh, yes. Or you could look at the face of a baby and that baby smiles at you and all of a sudden life comes in. Or it may be that you have somebody in your life who is, you know, you don't particularly like, and you really can't get yourself to say that you love them, but is there something about them that you could like? It's like this person that I know who is difficult person. Our personalities don't really go together, but he's a great gardener. I mean, and all that kind of stuff. It's just amazing. But I have to admit that because he really is a great gardener, and he's got a really nice head of hair in his old age. So, but you know, those are things that I can actually accept and say to myself, all right, the others are difficult, but here's something that is really nice about this certain person. So it's what we're looking for, you know. I think we as human beings are looking for our true humanity. What A.T. was looking for when he was reaching for home. I think we within our inner being have the juice, the physician within, call it what you may, but that aspect of ourselves, and the person that is in this body, that is working in this body, has access to that actual juice that's there if they recognize it and if they begin to work with it. And I see that in the eyes and faces of people as I meet them all the time. And I could not in my wildest imagination ever imagine being able to talk to you like we're doing right now. I mean, think about how the world has been brought together so that we can share the things that we think are important in this life. We can share anything else we want to, but the things that are really what you're saying, what I'm trying to say, what we're working together to build, I think is a village for living medicine, which can be any place in this world where we are looking for life and love as the true healers, and that's our focus in the things that we do.
That's so beautiful. In everything you were just saying, where does self-love fit in? Where does self-care fit in? Because I think that, again, in today's society, we are very much, and I'm not even today's society, in reading your story, you're such a giver. You've given your entire life. And so where does that self-love come in? Because as we're talking about giving love to others, being there for others, reciprocating and us going back and forth in order to help people, where does the self-love come in, and how important do you feel that is when it comes to being able to show up for other people?
You have to have self-love in order to be able to love other people. Mm-hmm. If you haven't even juiced your own self, how are you having the juice enough to share with other people? It's, you have to, it's like with a pregnancy, the mother has to eat and sleep and do the things so the baby can live. But as long as we have within us that essence of who we really are, and we don't even accept the responsibility of taking care of it and loving it like we would with a pregnancy, then life is so sad. But if we actually realize that within us, there's something pretty neat going on, and it feels good to love that aspect. I call it going down memory lane. At night when you can't sleep, instead of worrying about not sleeping, in which case you won't sleep, if you can just say, oh, I remember when, and you go down that lane, nobody else can have that memory the way you do, and no one can take it away from you. No one can take those memories away from you. So as you reclaim them when you're trying to go to sleep or whatever, or when things are really nasty, if you can reclaim some aspect of your whole life at that time that allows you to feel I get to keep on breathing, and yes, that you can affirm, as you affirm yourself, you affirm life, and you affirm love, and your life changes.
Oh, you just blew my mind with that. I've never thought about thinking about it as like a pregnancy and how that leads to affirming yourself. Wow, that was so powerful. So I'm definitely going to use that analogy from now on. I actually don't have children, but I'm definitely going to use that analogy. I totally understand how fueling yourself will then allow you to fuel others, allow you to find the love. So talk to me about your 5 L's. I found this absolutely fascinating. Again, it's so, it's almost counterintuitive of how I normally think. And so if you don't mind breaking that down, it's just changed my life.
Yeah, helped me to sort of get some structure in my thinking. Life and love have to go together. Life by itself is like a seed in the pyramid. It has a shell around it, and it has all the energy of the universe within it, but it can't do anything until love, in the way of light and water and so on, activates it, cracks the shell, and then life manifests, and it can do it. But life and love have to, they have to be together. In fact, the two words are exactly the same, except for a L and an O, a phallic symbol and an ovum.
I've never thought of that. Oh my God,
It's,
that's amazing.
isn't that true? Okay. So life and love are they are a unit. They go together. The next one is laughter. Laughter without love is mean. It's cruel. It hurts. People are damaged. Families are torn apart by mean things that are said or done or whatever. But laughter with love is joy and happiness. It's what makes you sing, you know. Labor without love is drudgery. Oh man, too many diapers. I have to go to work. This is too hard. It's too dark. I'm too scared. All of those things are drudgery. You drag yourself through it. But if you can begin to look at it not as drudgery, but as the very thing that lets you live in bliss. It's the joy of a painter that's painting. It's the singer that's singing. It's why you're doing what you're doing. It's why I'm doing it's very juice within us, and is bliss. And the fifth one is listening. Listening without love is empty sound. I have so many patients who have gone to see another doctor and come back and said to me, I told them everything and he didn't listen at all. You know, it's such a injured soul that comes back. But listening with love is understanding. So for me, these 5 L's really give me a platform on which I can stand and live my life as I choose to live it, with this as my foundation.
That's so powerful. My God, I love that so much. And you share a story in your book that I literally laughed out loud, Gladys. And I've already told my husband this story. I'm telling everybody that I see this story about how that moment of you're at the grocery store, and I believe you're like 93 years old. And please share that story. It is so beautiful because the end result of how you got to the laughter is just amazing. And it really highlights the importance of exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. I had just come back from my 99th birthday party. Okay. So I'm feeling pretty good. And I go to the grocery store to pick up some groceries, and they're in the basket, and I'm moving them from the basket to my car. And an elder man comes walking by, and he says to me, "Oh, may I help you?" And I said, No, I can do it myself. And he says, "Well, I'm 86. And I said, "Well, I'm 99. And I march off, and I get into my car with the groceries, and I sit down. And I said to myself, "You nasty old woman. He was just being nice. Why don't you go back and apologize?" And, so I'm struggling with myself. And suddenly I realized that is so funny. 2 kindergarten kids in the sign box trying to outdo the other one by saying, I'm older than you are. And I started laughing, and I sat there and I just laughed. It's a huge comedy thing, you know.
Oh, I love that story. So, and it made me laugh out loud. And so, as we were going through, as you were going through the 5 L's, and you talk about laughter, I'd never thought about laughter without love as being cruel. That is so strong. But the importance of laughter. And so, anyone listening, if they're feeling down, if they're feeling hurt, if they don't know how to switch things around, that little beautiful story of how, and you even said it in the book, I think it was like, I was just picturing like, oh, from the outside, here there's these two really old people arguing about who's actually stronger to lift the bags to put in the car. And then that thought then made you laugh out loud, which then dissipated the annoyance or the frustration that maybe you got hit with initially. And so many of us, I think, stay in that moment of being offended or being upset or being, defensive, and being able to say, hang on a minute, this doesn't suit me. How can I flip it? Let me see the humor in this. And then the fact that you're able to see the humor, and then, the story ends with you laughing in your car by yourself hysterically.
Yeah. Well, my mother taught me that when I was this dyslexic kid and all, but so I was when I got into third grade, the teacher saw something in me that the other one hadn't. So she appointed me class governor because I could do some things that the other kids didn't want to do or something like that. Anyway, we had a play that our class was to put on for the whole student body. And since I was bigger than the other kids because I'd been around 1 year longer, I was the frog jumped over the pond. So I was the frog. And my mother made me a little green frog suit and all of that. And I come walking onto the stage with great confidence because I could jump over that pond really well. And so I come walking out, but I see my two older brothers in the front row of the audience. And it just threw me off my step enough that instead of jumping over the pond, I landed in it. And I'm standing in the pond, and my suit is fading, and I'm crying, and I can't move, and I'm just totally humiliated, and life is terrible, and all of that. And the audience is cracking up. They're laughing and just doubling up. The more they laughed, the louder it got. Finally, the teacher comes and leads me off the stage. And that was my deep humiliation, the end of everything. So we get home and we're at the dinner table, and my brothers are telling my mother how humorous this was, how funny it was, and how they were just laughing and laughing. I'm giving them the dead eye, and they're not paying any attention to me, but they're just really going on. And finally, my mother says, all right, boys, now you've had your fun, but what can we do as a family to help Gladys so that this never happens? If it ever happens again, she can turn into something that the people will laugh with her and not at her. And throughout my life, that has been something that I was able to do from that point on. Because, with this whole aspect of dyslexia, there's also a certain amount of imbalance. I can't tell you how many times I've tripped when I'm going up to the podium and all that. But I've always been able to say something like, oh, I'm such a drama queen. And I immediately have the audience in my hand, and I could start it is that I'm talking about. So that my mother's wisdom and ability to take throughout her life, she could take anything that happened almost, and with just a little twist, make something humorous out of it. A week before she died, we were sitting out on our porch, and my dad and I were looking at the garden, and she says, "Look at that," says my dad, "look at that petunia bush. It's got at least 400 blossoms on it." And my dad says, "Oh, Beth, it doesn't have more than 40. She says, "What's another zero?" I mean, that kind of humor that imbued my very essence. And so I was able to carry that on as life has gone on. It's how we juice each other up, and my mother, when she fell and broke her hip, broke her knee and her ribs, and my dad and I were moving her onto the x-ray table, and she looks up and sees the pain in our faces, and she says, "The old gray bear, she ain't what she used to be," and the next day she died. But it was having a role model like that. It has been grace beyond imagining,
That's such a beautiful story, yeah. And, in your book, you call it, humiliation through humor. And I actually didn't realize that that's exactly what I did. And you even said as you walked up to the podium and you trip, the first time I ever did public speaking, I was so scared. And part of what I was scared about is being humiliated. And so
Yeah.
what I realized is, how do I get past it? Because getting on stage becomes a part of me that I get to impact people. Impacting people is my North Star. It is my mission. It is my purpose. It is my juice, as you call it in your book. And so I realized I need to live in my juice. I need to keep squeezing the juice. But if I'm scared to go on stage because of humiliation, it is now preventing me from squeezing the juice. So I realized what I was afraid of was being humiliated. Okay, how do I counteract that? The idea was I just laughed at myself. And so that was the thing that I just had in my head. Lisa, if you mess up, just laugh. Because then at least all the audience will laugh with you, not at you. And it never dawned on me until you just said that. And I was like, oh my God, that is exactly the aha moment that I had. I couldn't articulate it before. And I actually did mess up the very first time. And I ended up saying that my father gave birth to my grandmother instead of obviously the other way around. And it's my first public speaking gig. And I just laughed, and I was like, well, that would be weird. And everybody laughed and I laughed, and then I just was able to move on. And that story now hits me very beautifully, and I can say it with humor, not with humiliation.
Yeah. And what a difference.
Yeah, such a difference. Dr. Gladys, I literally could talk to you for so long. We've just touched on a couple of your secrets of how to bring happiness and love and light to somebody's life. Where can people find you and your just incredible book that you've written?
GladysMcGarry.com and the Foundation for Living Medicine. Either one. Love you.